Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Instead of doing tech debt now, we are going to be caught in between one of two things that will be happening. Actually, one of three things that will be happening in the sprint from now on. Either there's going to be a feature development, there's going to be an expanded feature, or it'll actually be tech debt. So we have come to the point where at least 85-90% of the system is built in terms of functionality, and now we're just expanding upon it. So you'll see different colors now in the series, and green is going to be expansion of a current feature, and that is today we are going to be expanding upon the user-defined data type creator, because we're prepping for the archive and history tables. So I hope you enjoy, and I will see you soon. Alright, so I did expand upon the DataPointType, how we were creating user-defined types across all of our databases. And what I did was, there are several new procedures in this little area, and they started to lose suffixes. So then we have this master procedure, and this is the last thing I will go over. What we originally had were just these two procedures, and I modified create single, which is this procedure that you're looking at. And what I modified is I took away the UDT from here and here. It used to say UDT underscore, and I took away those 4 characters from this location and from this location because I'm going to pass in that prefix. So that was the only change I made there. I did create a new procedure called classify. Now, this procedure is 90% identical to this classify process, except actually I modified this, replaced process with data point, changed the name to DataPointType just so it matched my little grouping in SSMS. And I removed process name, or data point name in this case, and I removed database key name and type key name. And all it does is make sure, you pass it a realm, class, family, type, and it makes sure that the realm is in the realm table and the class is in the class table for that realm, and the family for the class, and the type for the family. I'm scrolling through this pretty fast because it was basically a find and replace development of this procedure. And this is meant so I could send this procedure a data point, realm, class, family, and type, and it'll make sure that that whole path exists in my taxonomy for data point. A new procedure that I created, I'll move back up here, the definition. All these new definitions that we've been creating attached to the relationship, definition to data point type. Well, we're going to be creating archive and history tables and domains and shared attributes, and we want a way to actually, maintain this in an easier fashion. So I created this simple procedure meant for definitions that I will send it a DataPointType ID, and then I'll start sending it flags like, is this nullable or not? Does this data point type, is it allowed in the insert view? Is it allowed in the update view? What's the default constraint when we are creating the table? And this is the only non-flag because we have true, false, and null. I could have made it a flag and just done 1, 0, or null, but I want to show how we're using key names, and that's a really important piece. Because an accidental null versus actually sending the string null is completely different. So that is why I used text here and actual flags here, because these are really yes or no's, and if it's null, nothing's going to work. So this definition procedure has the definition IDs for the select, insert, and update, and here the RCFTs, and actually the base ID, or the base key name. And then we have the defaults, like I said, null, true, false. And we have containers for the definition ID for those defaults. And then we have containers for, is this data point type nullable or not, which was an expansion, the last video of that table creator, because I did miss that piece and it was a very important piece. And then the the real data that we need is the system relationship type ID for definition of data point type, the definition specific data set number, and the data point type specific data set number, because the rest of it is going to get generated. So instead of trying to do some if logic, hey, if this is 1, then get it. If not, skip it. I just went ahead and made some clean code. I mean, this should be a non-clustered, super fast retrieve, no key lookup, nothing like that. So I use the definition type ID for select, definition type ID for insert, get definition type ID for update. So I have all my definitions for the views, and then I have all my definitions for the defaults using the same pattern. And then I have my 2 new defaults for nullable and not nullable on the nullable data point type. And then I had to get the specific data set numbers for the definition and data point type tables, because those are in my relationship table, and that's the only relationship that I'm dealing with in this procedure, this one definition to data point type functional relationship. So after I got all of my variables situated, it was just figuring out what the incoming variables were and what to do with that. So if the definition was nullable, or if I want it to be a nullable column, then I went and made sure that there wasn't a relationship already there with this data point type ID, and I inserted that record. Now, what's very important to notice here is me highlighting the parent implied, which is the definition ID, and my IntelliSense highlighting the other version of it. These are the only 2 things that are changing in every single query. So this is if it's nullable, or else it's not nullable. And if I highlight this again, that's the only thing. I mean, this is the only thing that is really changing in all of these procedures, is the parent implied on both the if exists statement and the insert statement. So we go down, if definition view insert is 1, we want it in our view, so we're going to make sure that the definition data point type does not exist. Insert it if it doesn't exist already. Same with the update. Again, only thing that changes, insert it if it doesn't exist already. Definitely insert select. Insert this data point type to the select view if it doesn't exist already. And then the definition constraint, say if it's true, go ahead and connect that data point type to the definition default of true. Else, if it's false, go ahead and connect it to the default of false. And I just put an else on here because if I do get a real null, I want it to be a null. The null is the last thing I want it to be, but if I had a choice between anything, it would be a null. So that's our last else statement instead of an else if. And that's it for this procedure. Pretty simple, just making sure that all of our definitions are created. The next procedure is the topmost procedure, which is this one. And what this does is this wraps the transaction. You see, we don't want to do transactions on these lower level items. We want to bring the transaction to as high a level as we can. So if I had to create something that called this, and it did many things, right? I would probably want to take the transaction out of here and put it on the higher level, because we want, an all or nothing, but we don't want nested transactions. They don't fill out very well unless you're very stringent on the naming conventions that you give it and how you roll back and how you save and all this fun stuff. But this is the topmost procedure, and it's taking in everything it needs for the bottom procedures. The definition piece, the SQL data type that it's going to create the user-defined type out of, and the classification. The only variable I needed is the data point type ID. So I send the key names, realm, class, family, type key names to make sure that it's there, and then I call the data point type ID using our standard function and full of parameters. There is no red text in there. So then I would assuredly get a DataPointType ID, or else it would error out and our transaction would fail out. We'd get a message and everything would get rolled back. So once I get my DataPointType ID, I can create the UDT across the system. And then, since I know that this had completed, I can attach all the definitions to that DataPointType ID that I had just got. So pretty simple, lots of code, but just the same repeated pattern. So it's a lot of copy paste code, nothing too extravagant. But yeah, this is what you're going to be seeing more often. Instead of pure tech debt videos, is expansion videos and maybe some tech debt videos, because we're going to start really building out the system in this series while our other series are taking off, So thank you very much for watching, and remember, like this video and YouTube will recommend it to users in our industry, and subscribe to support me. Thanks again, and I will see you for the retro and planning.